We hope that their findings will contribute to our understanding of and the fight against terrorism. It's a very present threat in our midst, and it's good to see that there are people who can look at it with scholarly eyes and give us a peek of what they see. And I hope you take a look at it and benefit from it as well. Working with the late Joseph Bossa on Nationhood on Trial was a journey of discovery. The late Bossa is represented here by his daughters and a few other members of the family. You will see them later. But can you imagine an acting president of the former ruling party, UPC, coming to see you all by himself? No bodyguard, no personal assistant. That was Bossa. A Muganda Catholic at the helm of late Milton Obote's UPC. A UPC leader who can pinpoint faults in Obote's performance as a political leader and also see some positive traits in President Yoweri Museveni's performance, providing families of former leaders with support, for instance. He says that's a positive trait. I mean, Bossa was just an enigma. He beat every stereotype and stood out as an independent thinker. We so proudly worked with him to produce that piece of work you see there called Nationhood on Trial, the 1966 crisis. Bossa's book and Dr. Godfrey Asimwe's mismanagement of subnationalism in New Nations on the 1966 Uganda crisis, or is it Uganda crisis? Read both of them to see how differently gifted both writers are and how they augment one another in their understanding of this pivotal moment in our history as a nation. When we read Dr. Godfrey Asimwe's work, you feel like telling the gentleman to stop talking and just concentrate on writing. He's just an excellent writer. I mean, you hang on every word that he's saying. His writing is so deep and so sweet. He looks at what many other authors have done, like a good scholar, but comes up with very new and fresh revelations on what others have already said something. A good way to engage with what is already there. And that is what mismanagement of subnationalism in New Nations is about. At the end of April this year, we held a mini launch for Professor Kiwanuka Ntondo's HIV Aids in Uganda, because he was coming into the country briefly from the US and going on to South Africa for another engagement. But his book is also here, HIV Aids in Uganda. His book is another gem that was retrieved from another publisher and given to us as a statement of faith in Makerere University and what it's capable of doing. James has given us a second manuscript to process, and we are grateful that this is continuing, and it shows the trust that he has in Makerere and the press in particular. Through these works, James has reissued some pieces published in world-class journals, making them accessible and affordable to our local readers. This is a model that we should emulate, those of us who are writing. Can you imagine a Ugandan writing Kiswahili poetry? This is what Dr. Innocent Masengo does in Lulu ya Bara, which I'm told is interpreted as the pearl of the continent. We are waiting to hear what our Kiswahili-speaking regional neighbors will say. They have previously alleged that Kiswahili was born in Tanzania, that it died in Kenya, and was buried in Uganda. Could this mark the resurrection of the dead Kiswahili? In any case, our publication has already joined the reading list for Kiswahili literature, adding a Ugandan flavor to the Kiswahili poetry menu. We look forward to seeing more of the same from our language experts. I would like to thank the Vice Chancellor and management for the continued support that they have given to the activities of the University Press amidst many other daunting challenges that the university is facing. I thank the outgoing editorial board under the chairmanship of the DVC F&A, Dr. Umar Kakumba, for offering the guidance and support that has enabled the press to do this work. Your persistence has yielded the seeds that you see, the fruits that you see. Let me also take this opportunity to thank our critical readers. I invited a number of them, what we sometimes call peer reviewers, for your invaluable input, without which we would not qualify to be called a scholarly publisher. Our illustrators, some of whom are here, typesetters and printers, thank you for your specialist input. The director, D.R. Ajiti, unfortunately he had a family loss and traveled, he's not here. Professor Windsor and your staff, thank you for hosting the press and for the administrative oversight and support that you continue to provide us. Permit me to also say thank you to the staff of the University Press, my senior editor, Ms. Mariam Nachiseka. She was somewhere here. Yeah, Mariam. And then editors, Catherine Agaba. She's, I think, outside doing some work. And Bernard Atuhairwe, we had invited him to this. He worked with us until April when he opted out. But that's the team that has put together their best efforts to keep the press going, and I want to say thank you to them. As you can see, your labor has not been in vain, all of you whose names I've mentioned and those I haven't. Even if the institutional environment is not so conducive for publishing, we have not given up. Instead, we work to make the environment conducive. That is how we at Makerere University Press build for the future, for God and our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Siminyu, and sorry about the pronunciation of your name. One of the things I loved is when you said something about a statement of faith. And in humanities, we talk a lot about ages of disruption, and yet, even in times as these, we still have faith in our university and research at this university. And thank you for keeping the banner flying, even when there's a lot of interruption and disruption. Thank you very much, sir. Would like to move on to the next beat of our program, and to all our authors, I'm going to request one author to come and give us remarks about their work. We also have some edited books in our collection of the 9 books to be launched this afternoon. So I'm going to call up an author or an editor at a time to just come give us a highlight about their work and what they would like to say about it. It's going to be said in 5 minutes. And I would like to start with Professor Oswald Ndolerire, whose work is titled Runyachitara Language Studies, a guide for advanced learners and teachers in Runyachitara. Thank you so much, Prof. And this will be followed by Professor Sebunga. Is he here? Okay, Professor Sebunga co-edited with Samuel, so Samuel might have to give us some remarks. Let's listen to Professor Ndolerire, and then we'll move on from there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, MC. Our chief guest, Honorable Dr. Cosmas Mukirize, the Vice Chancellor, Professor Barnabas Nawangwe, the Vice Chancellor of Soroti University, Professor Robert Ikoja, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic Affairs, Professor Umar Kakumba, the Principal, College of Humanities and Social Sciences, Dr. Josephine Ahikire, authors, editors, professors, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for inviting us to come here. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to launch our books. Particularly, I would like to thank Makerere University and Makerere University Press for trusting us to give them something which may be of value. The book which we are launching now on Runyakitara language studies, its story started somewhere in 1995 when we were planning to start Runyakitara as a degree course, and we got a small grant from Makerere University. Thank you again, Vice Chancellor. We got money, and we went and did research in Western Uganda. We went also to Northern Tanzania, because we have the Bahaya there who also speak Runyakitara, by the way. And we did some research, and we compiled 3 manuscripts. One on language, which is this one on literature, which is going to come later, we are reviewing it, and then another on culture, which Makerere University Press has kindly accepted to publish also, and which is in its final stages. As one of the editors and contributors, I had a look at that book on culture, and I told myself, oh, this book seems to be good. So I'm not biasing you or campaigning for it, but when it comes out, I think it will be very useful because its readership is different. It covers a wide area, and I think every African can find something there. The one of today, language, of course, is more technical. The readership is more limited to students and scholars of language. And so the readership may be more restricted. But we brought out the book because, as you may know, Runyakitara stands for the languages spoken in Western Uganda, especially Runyoro, Rutoro, Runyankore, and Rukiga, and the related languages, as well as languages of Northern Tanzania like Ruhaya and Chikerewe, and then the languages of DRC like Ruhema. Because of the high level of mutual intelligibility, we decided to teach them as one language, and that's why it was important to come out with something like this to help the teachers and learners. How do you teach this thing as if it was one? And that's why that book has come out. Now, without delaying you too much, because I only have 5 minutes, let me read and mention the authors who may be here. I think I'll go by chapter, it will be faster. The first chapter was on phonetics and phonology, and that was handled by myself and Dr. Gumoshabe. I hope Dr. Gumoshabe is there. The second chapter on general and nominal morphology was handled by Dr. Katushemererwe, myself, and Shali Vyakutaga. I don't know if any of the others are here, maybe not. The third chapter on verbal morphology was handled by Dr. Gumoshabe and myself. Dr. Gumoshabe is there. The fourth chapter on syntax was handled by myself. The fifth chapter on semantics by Dr. Richiriza. Is he around? Dr. Richiriza. The sixth chapter on translation processes and constraints was by Dr. Gumoshabe. He's there. Then the seventh chapter on translation and interpretation, linking theory and practice by Professor Natukunda Edith. I don't know whether she's around. No. The fourth chapter on orthography by Gumoshabe and myself. And the ninth chapter on discourse analysis by Dr. Lefis Mugumya. I don't know whether he is around. He's right there. Thank you, Dr. Mugumya, for making it. So, Mr. Vice Chancellor, guest of honor, colleagues, that's the bit I can say about Runyakitara language studies. I invite you to try to read it so that you know more about the other languages of Uganda. And I also invite you to read our book on the cultures of the Banyakitara, which will soon be out. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Prof. I would like to recognize the presence of my principal, Professor Josephine Aichire. Thank you for being part of this event, and you're most welcome. I would like to invite Dr. Simenyu to talk about the book he co-edited with Professor Sebunga, who is not with us here.
Thank you very much, MC. I would like to recognize the presence of Professor Wamara Robert, who is representing the director, DRGT. Welcome, Sevo. And he's a member of our editorial board. I think that the chair of the board will introduce his members fully later, but I'm introducing my boss at the directorate. Ladies and gentlemen, we started to work on this book entitled Issues in Educational Research before I became editor of the University Press. Actually, I inherited the manuscript. Dr. Sebunga Masembe was my teacher later at undergraduate level. And when your teacher recognizes that you have a gift and is willing to work with you, you feel very honored. So when the team he was working with was not delivering, he fished me out and said, can we work together to make this publication? It's a collection of articles on contemporary issues in educational research, and draws authors from Makerere, from sister universities, and from universities across the border. We put together a number of articles and worked with the authors. Down the road, some authors do drop off when they are not able to cope with the expectations. So by the time I took on the mantle of managing editor of the University Press, we already had these manuscripts developed to some level. And we asked the college if we could publish it as one of the first publications of Makerere University Press, and they were glad to give us the opportunity. And like I mentioned in the presentation, it has already excited a lot of interest. Actually, members were asking why not have a journal by the same title, Contemporary Issues in Educational Research, and let people continue to develop, because this is what is contemporary keeps changing with the times. And we put that back to the college to say, can we get something running? But they already had about 2 journals running, and so they were thinking they were not in position to start another journal. But this just tells you the level of expectation and excitement. I got a copy of this and passed it on to the chair of council. I gave her actually all our publications, and she told me when she was also interested in learning about higher education, she read this. So policy makers, decision makers are benefiting from the work that comes from our efforts. I'm saying this to encourage us to write and to encourage us to work with the University Press and make this type of work accessible to our students, to our policy makers, to those of us that need to learn about what is going on and what we can do to improve the situation. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your ears.
Thank you so much, Dr. Simenyu. Jimmy Spire. What I saw when I died, I would like us to hear from Jimmy. What he saw when he died.
Vice Chancellor, our chief guest, and everyone around. Oh, my principal, I shouldn't forget you. It's always dangerous to forget your boss. I was given only 5 minutes, but I did not have enough time to prepare a short speech, so I wrote a long one, and I hope you bear with it. The human being's desire to laugh is one of the most underestimated elements in scholarship on dissemination of knowledge. While we argue that reason is the key attribute that makes us unique from other beings, you find that most of our actions are more informed by emotions such as love, anger, hatred, jealousy, and so on. This book is a deployment of satire to speak about many crucial social, political, and religious matters through invoking emotions of laughter. It is an attempt to think and philosophize about uncomfortable and sensitive topics in a way that permits us to reflect about them while we laugh. After all, as I note in the book, if we did not find a way of laughing about some of the things that happen in our society, probably the weight of those things would have killed us. It is not out of insensitivity that we laugh at funerals and that we crack jokes while weeding cemeteries. After all, even death, which is the meanest nuisance of the human condition, has humor. While you're swearing to teach someone a lesson tomorrow, death is smiling, knowing that your hour is tonight. Show me a space without humor, and I will show you emptiness. Coming to the title, perhaps many of you think that a book titled What I Saw When I Died could only have been written by Jesus. That is why I invite you to first read it before we discuss its title. I thank everyone that has contributed to the publication of my book in a special way. I thank Dr. Siminyu for encouraging me to put this book together, Dr. Edgar Nabutanyi, who wrote the introduction, and Dr. Danson Kayana for his critical eye. I thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy, for your long speech. I saw it was one paragraph. It was a really long speech. Thank you very much, Jimmy. Next, we're going to listen to Dr. Veneranda Mbabazi. Her book is titled Countering Violent Extremism in Uganda, an assessment of the history, philosophies, and strategies. Dr. Veneranda, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and for the case of time, I just would like to say that all the protocol observed, and as you can see, our book is just there in the corner. It is titled Countering Violent Extremism in Uganda, History, Philosophies, and Strategies. I would like to mention that this book was published by Dr. Venerana Mbabas, myself, Dr. Helen Nambari Wankabala. In case you are here, please, you stand for recognition. Dr. Dixon Kanakudia, Dr. Samson Barije, Dr. Charlotte Mafumbo, Dr. Hilary Chiza, Mr. Umar Serunjoji, Abdul Katend, and Professor George Kasozi. So this book is divided into 6 chapters. The first chapter looks at contextualizing violent extremism, and this one takes it from a global perspective. The second chapter is understanding violent extremism in Uganda. The third chapter of our book is civil society organizations involved in countering violent extremism. The fourth chapter is philosophy of peace building and frameworks of countering violent extremism. The fifth is impact assessment and evaluation of civil society's programs aimed at countering extremism. And the last chapter is what we called Rigo, aspects of countering violent extremism in Uganda. So what is in this book? I just want to give you a glimpse of what is in this book. Most probably some of you have not read it. So this book is scholarly. At the same time, it is very, very informative because violent extremism is affecting each and every one of us. So this book presents the findings from an evaluation of the impact of civil society organization-led interventions in countering violent extremism. And this book came as a product, actually, of the research which was sponsored by United States Institute of Peace. They funded us and were able to go into the field. So while this book mainly focuses on countering or the impact of civil society organization with regard to countering violent extremism, it nevertheless focuses or contextualizes global violent extremism from a global perspective. And one of the things you need to know about this book is that the common thread that runs through this book is that violent extremism is affecting and continues to affect all parts of the world. Moreover, these extremist groups are not only changing their tactics, they are as well changing their targets. For instance, during the COVID pandemic, when the world was under the lockdown, terrorists had to shift their line of operation and they started capitalizing on online audience. And this book also points out that countries and states, as countries and states continue to find effective ways of countering violent extremism, they need to keep in mind that there is no single pathway into violent extremism. At the same time, they need to know that there is no single strategy that can be used to counter violent extremism, because extremist groups and organizations, they continue to adopt other strategies to advance their violent activities. Therefore, we advise that nations and states which are involved in countering violent extremism, they will not only need to address extreme threats by using a wider range of interventions, those interventions also, they have to be contingent in nature. This book further points out that interventions aimed at countering violent extremism must use both security. At the same time, they have to address the underlying conditions that drive individuals into committing violent extreme acts. And we just actually highlight that this book points out that countries and states that are involved in addressing socioeconomic marginalization, political and governance challenges, corruption, negative religious beliefs, demographic and human abuse are more likely to minimize incidences of radicalization, at the same time minimize incidences where individuals are joining extremist groups. And finally, we say that there is need to build resilient communities so that those communities desist from embracing dangerous memories and propaganda of extremist individuals and groups who often attract or drive individuals into joining these extremist groups. I would like to thank, for instance, United States Institute of Peace for providing us funds. Would like to thank civil society organizations that allowed us to carry research in their premises or in their programs. And would like to thank Makerere University Press for really accepting to publish our book. And we thank each and everyone who is here for your time as we continue to build for the future for God and my country. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mbabazi, and for your short speech too. Thank you very much. Is Dr. Masengo here? I've not seen him. Okay, I've been told Dr. Masengo is not here, and Professor Godfrey Asimwe would like you to come and just give us a brief on your book titled Mismanagement of Subnationalism and Diversity in Nations, the Case of Buganda in Uganda. Thank you.
Thank you, our guest of honor, our Vice Chancellor, Deputy Vice Chancellors, and Principal, all protocol observed. I'm Asimwe Godfrey, and my book is entitled Mismanagement of Subnationalism and Diversity in Nations, nations in quotes, the case of Buganda in Uganda from 1879 to 1980. The book revisits the complexity of modern new nations, artificial nations like Uganda, trying to build a nation, and pre-existing entities like Buganda. This is not a case only in Uganda. We've had South Sudan, we've had Ethiopia, Biafra, the Kira Republic of the Bakonjo, Katanga. It's a recurrent problem. Through deep discourse analysis, the work historically unravels the intricate interlace of self-preservation agency from the dawn of the new order through the supranationhood architecture. So these subnationalisms have continued, and in the case of Buganda, we get different phases. We get the independence of Uganda, of Buganda in before the independence of Uganda, which cascaded to the 1966-67 crisis, continued to Ebiafe, continued to federal, and now some people think that it has continued under the guise of NUP. So there are a lot that have been written about such subnationalisms, but attempt to use quick fix repression and subterfuge has been costly, but also unsustainable. And the demands continue. Even by the way, the Bagisu declared independence before even Buganda declared secession. So what is this? So this book tries to go deeper, and analyze, look at the different discourses and try to unravel the issues so that we may maybe get a more sustainable solution. And I must say that as provoked by my professor, PhD supervisor, when I was doing my PhD in development studies and I was looking at coffee, and I all of a sudden saw the coffee prices very low in 1965, 66, 67, vis-a-vis the cotton prices. He asked me, why were the coffee prices so low, yet they were very high on the world market? He insisted for a week until I realized they were related to the Uganda crisis, and most of the coffee was in Uganda. So that taught me to dig deep and see what is underground. And this is what this book does. I invite you to take a look, and I welcome critical and constructive criticism. I thank Makerere Press for giving us the platform to publish, for if we don't publish, we perish. Now there is a saying that you can publish and perish. But Makerere Press is not the type that will publish our work so that we perish. We thank you very much, Dr. Siminyo and the team. We thank the Vice Chancellor wholeheartedly for enabling us to disseminate our knowledge and grow our careers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Simwe. Finally, Professor DiPio is not on call, so we won't listen to her about the edited book she has. I would like Elizabeth Bossa, if she's in here, to come and just give us some remarks on Joseph Bossa's work. In literary studies, we normally say that he lives who lives works of art. That's why we still say Shakespeare says instead of Shakespeare said. And writers are alive, and so we are glad that Elizabeth and family could take time to be here. You're welcome.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. My name is Elizabeth Bossa, and I'm standing here to represent Honorable Lady Justice Salome Balungi Bossa and the rest of the family of the late Joseph Bossa, who have not been able to make it because of the short notice. Proud to stand in front of you to represent a man who built a rich legacy and still lives on even after his death. Thank you. Before I go any further, may we please observe a moment of silence in remembrance of Mr. Joseph Bossa. Thank you. Thank you all. We would like to thank the organizers for this event, for inviting us to this book launch. This is a very special moment for us. A special thank you to Professor Simenyu, Madame Mariam, and the entire faculty for tirelessly working on this project and seeing it to completion. Even given the unusual circumstances like the passing on of our father, the author, and complications brought about by the pandemic, their allegiance in meeting the cost of publishing the book. I also acknowledge the people who read the draft and made comments on improving it, and the secretary who typed. We are grateful to the publishers for honoring Mr. Bossa's legacy. Mr. Bossa had a great work ethic, so much that he edited this book while he was sick and fighting for his life. Not even adversity would stop him. He put forward his best foot and bravely exerted his intellectual capacity to make sure he honored his commitment to author this book. The book is entitled The State of Trial, Thoughts of the 1966 Political Crisis. Mr. Bossa, the author, in the introduction of the book states that he narrated the important factual events, explained them, taking into account the written record left behind by King Edward Mutesa II of what he saw and felt. He entered into the individual or collective minds of the authors in order to eliminate an understanding of the 1966 political crisis. He brought factual clarity and a different interpretation of events to this episode in Uganda's history. As a family, we commend this book to you. It makes an excellent reading, and we hope that you enjoy reading it as much as he enjoyed writing it. Mr. Joseph Bossa was a husband, ever-present father, a grandfather, a teacher, and an Ubuntu personified. He loved reading books, sought justice for all, but most importantly, he loved and wholly committed to his family. When he was asked why he joined politics after retirement, he said he had to raise his children first. He did not want the duties as a politician to interfere with his responsibilities as a father. He was a good listener and who valued honesty, integrity, and taught us to do the right thing no matter how hard it is. He was a good orator who never made the same speech twice. We hope that everybody that reads it learns something new and appreciates the painstaking research that went into illuminating the events that were important in shaping our nation. We know that wherever Dad is, he's very satisfied with the momentous occasion, and for that we are very grateful to everyone who has made it happen. Thank you very much.
Another round of applause to all our authors, and thank you so much, Jimmy. Thank you, Venny. Thank you, Oswald, Godfrey, and the family representatives of Mr. Bossa. Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you even to our online audience for joining us for this event. Now, we are done with listening to the books and the content from the books. And we would like to take this chance then to listen to Professor Robert Ikoja, who is going to present and deliver a keynote address on the theme 100 Years of Scholarly Publishing at Makerere University. Professor Robert Ikoja is the Vice Chancellor, Soroti University. Strangely, I grew up knowing him as a principal at the College of Computing and Information Sciences. We're glad to have you back home, and it's good to see you in our midst, Professor Ikoja, and I would like to welcome you to deliver your keynote address. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's good to be home again. This is a university which grew me up. And for a beginning, I would like you to stand in memory of one of our own, Professor Dranzoa, the VC of Muni University, who passed on just a number of hours ago. Can you please stand up in the congregation like this? May her soul rest in eternal peace. I would like to begin by saying that I am happy Makerere is resurrecting. I'm happy Makerere is a premier university. When I was hijacked on Thursday evening on this campus, I was told to report to Dr. Simenyu's office. I didn't even know where it was. And I was led there. I said, what was the purpose? You go and tell us what you know about publishing. Publishing is a subject which kept me in Makerere University. I was educated in India for a bachelor's degree in publishing and Scotland in publishing. And I trained Dr. Simenyu in the tactics of publishing. That is Dr. Simenyu. Today, I am therefore honored to come and serve the university that founded me. I worked in the library. I taught in the library school. I was the director of Institute of Psychology. And I left as a principal of the College of Computing. I did not want to go to leave Makerere because there was comfort. The only thing we used to do was strikes. Strikes. Agitating for money. Sometimes soldiers coming to beat us at night. We even joined life in trade unionism, doing the same job, agitating against the vice chancellor and so on and so forth. But as a leader now of a university, it should be the reverse. I don't want strikes. Being a vice chancellor is a tough job because many people say they are more connected than us, the vice chancellors. But we say, so long as I follow the regulations, we'll always survive until the day God says, you go away. Now, when I reported to Dr. Simenyu's office, the idea was, you go and talk about 100 years of scholarly publishing at Makerere, not at Makerere University, at Makerere. Meaning that you have to bring history on board. Because Makerere University became a university in 1970. Before that, it was the University of East Africa, Makerere College, this one. Dar es Salaam was also a part of it, the University of East Africa, and Nairobi. I want to say that the people who thought better to put Makerere here were very good people. Why? Because of what Makerere has contributed to this country. Julius Nyerere was a student here. The late president of Kenya, Mwai Kibaki, was also a student here. And many others, like most of the Rhodesians, were students of Makerere. And therefore, Makerere is like that thing in a roundabout there, a hen hatching eggs, but keeping her children well. Now, this is where my thank you comes from. The leaders of Makerere University, from the time they have been coming and so on and going, coming and so on, they have been preserving Makerere for the future. And they have done it There are many professors who have gone. There are many more coming up, and we encourage that to happen. Therefore, I am happy to be here, the powerhouse of education in this country. And because of that, I will share with you the little I remember about all the efforts that we tried to bring about scholarly publishing into this university. I'll give you tidbits about how it developed. Of course, in 1922, none of us was there. In the 50s, in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, many of us are here. And the future is continuing. The other day, I was talking to my daughter, who sits in this room as a lecture room. She said, "Daddy, do you mean people here when they are dead about this book, what I saw when I died? Do they see? What do you mean?" I said, "That is it. It is not like street literature for you to go and talk straight, like Across the Bridge, one of the Kenyan books, about robbers and their girlfriends." He said, "What?" I said, publishing, scholarly publishing, is about researched work by scholars, by academicians for a defined community. She saw me with another one, that one, moving back into the future. She said, "You people are crazy." I thought the future is in the front, but you are moving at the reverse. What does that mean? I said, "That is why we're educated." Then he says, "No wonder you people are poor. Because who will read that book?" I said, "It's us who are at that level. We shall give those books to our students. We shall look for a market for them outside there. This is what we call scholarship. Contemporary issues." She said, "All right. Anyway, let me go and sleep." I said, "Good luck." The topic of this is 100 years of publishing. But I want to tell you one thing. Publishing starts in our heads with ideas. It was in 1945 that Sir Philip Mitchell touted the idea of establishing a press at Makerere. He had thought that in the future, he forecasted, in the future, this institution was going to become a premier center of education in this region. And the results are today here. Philip Mitchell died. Long time ago, he was a Briton. He talked with the British Overseas Office. And they said there must be a university press in Makerere. In those days, the definition was not a publishing house, but a printery. The then rulers at that time sent someone called Yeko Mukasa to London to learn about printing at Makerere. And the printery was at the basement of the building which burnt down. When you go there, the basement is still there. That center was a center for keeping rifles, British rifles. It was also for printing. On where this side was for the bursar's office, which the bursar's office was now, was a library at that time. So the foundations for writing were actually laid down from the word press. From the word press. But we moved on. Printing started at Makerere University. Of course, there were other commercial publishers. And coupled with the growth of education in this country, most of our leaders who were born in 20s, late 20s, 30s, and 40s became firebrands in writing manuscripts for publications. There was a writing scheme at Makerere which saw so many journals with the people like Petals of that Wathiongo and so on and so forth writing at that time. Nyerere left those where there's current psychology, left back, and he started with the idea of ujamaa. Obote could not write anything because first of all he led a strike in this place. So he ran away to Kenya to become a clerk in a sugar factory. And later on to come back to his native village to start the issues of Legiko. In Uganda, as someone said, there was a crisis over copy. There was something called the Bataka movement. There was a Mzee called Ignatius somebody, Musazi, who led that one. So there was the spirit of nationalism, the spirit of seeing the white man come to rule them is incurred into the starting of the journal, Uganda Journal, in 1923. And what were the British doing? It was not African authors. They wanted to know about snakes of Uganda, soils of Uganda, crops of Uganda, flora, fauna, our tribalism, which we don't like these days, and so on. They wanted to know, to get what are the basic things to exploit from there. No wonder the railway started from, I think, Vice Chancellor's village there, and up to northeast, up to western, northern Uganda. They found coffee was there, and someone talked about coffee. Cotton was there for Lancaster industry. They put it for transporting those things, and so on and so forth. I am therefore happy to say there has been publishing in Makerere. It is not just scholarly publishing. It's a mixture. I will tell you. One, there is publishing of storybooks. That is trade publishing. There has been publishing of textbooks. That's textbook publishing. We have also seen newsletters come and go. That's newsletter publishing. We tried with the Makerere University Press to bring a Makererian, the newspapers by the guild. That is newspaper publishing. So therefore, what is scholarly publishing? It's about publishing research work for a defined market called the scholars, academicians in institutions of higher learning, specifically universities. We have talked about scholars. Are we all scholars? The idea is no. Some are just generic presenters. Finished. To be a scholar, you must be well known. You must be referred to all the time, consulted. Everywhere in conferences you are there. Everywhere the journal articles you are there. Even your students say, sir, madam, where can I get this one? But if you are publishing today, then you publish in the next 5 years. Is that being a scholar? I don't know. But we can define it, since we have written these books, we can say we are scholars of Makerere University Press. What do I say at this time? Scholarship is very important in an institution to grow. Recently, the Vice Chancellor was in Dar es Salaam, but I didn't even ring him. But I was reading, he was in Dar es Salaam doing work, because he is leading an institution where people have woken up to write. Go to mine. There is no book published yet. There are no scholars there. There are very few professors, about 4 or 5. Is that a university? Maybe 100 years from now it will be. 50 years from now it will be. In other words, the output of a scholarly press, this is one of them. This is one of them. It has made Makerere to be known. If it has been, these books have been marketed adequately. Professor Oswald Ndoreriri talked about the different people who can read Runya Kitara. And I was thinking about it last night. where are we going to sell it this way? I said, there are Tanzanians who can read that language. There are Congolese on the eastern side of Congo who can read that language. And the whole of that zone can read that thing. There is a market. Only what matters is how does it reach, how does that book reach there? Scholars' zone of performance is conferences. It is journal publication. It is books. When I was working in the library, I saw a big book written by Katende, Commercial Law in East Africa. I said, about over 700 pages. I said, where did this man get time? Because writing is a solitary event. You need people to respect you, and you also need to keep those people who are near you safe by feeding them so that you keep them away. Otherwise, you will never finish a book in 2 years. Symposia like this one is a good avenue for advertising and telling people that this book is available. And by me, ladies and gentlemen, I want to reflect briefly that what are the structures that are essential for scholarly publishing. Now that I've said there has been publishing, especially from 60s at Makerere to the present time, there has been a lot of publishing. The only thing where we made an error, maybe an error, is that we have not been compiling a bibliography of publications of Makerere since then. We would have put them on our website at Makerere, Universal Press, or a link that this one can be found in this faculty, this college, and so on. But there has been publishing at that place. We have the printery. I hope the machine is never burnt, because those are also a bit of a problem. Number two, we have a huge research culture in Makerere. To proceed from a teaching assistant or graduate fellow to the rank of a professor, it's not just like applying to say, I am your relative, promote me. Never. Produce evidence that you have been writing, you have been doing research. From which journals? Are they referred, or they are just general publications? We also made a mistake there before fire went off on this building, that for all the time we forgot to send all papers after someone has been promoted. You don't give them back to the owner or books. You send them to the library so that they are indexed there. We also forgot that one. Those are lessons. So if those things went on fire, that is the end of history at that time. Remember, once something has gone, reconstituting it is difficult. And more so, publications. The School of Graduate Studies, since it was formed, has been supporting the issue of writing theses, dissertations, whichever word you use, reports, and so on. So there is research for scholarly publishing at Makerere. We might have to thank them, although they sometimes do it selectively. They don't do it that if you go there, because people will go there with intentions of saving some money. When you go to a conference, you eat only once and come back home with some money, and so on and so forth. We have an infrastructure, formerly the bookshop. The bookshop was closed in a minute's time. There was a scarcity of books in this university. And it followed the Zambian model. And that model was have what we used to call it, there was an allowance for students for buying books. It was scrapped. There were no textbooks for students. The lecturers did not have any other books to refer to except yellow notes. That was the bookshop which was taken. Until Fountain Publishers came here to try to bring indigenization to publishing at Makerere. With more authors coming, I saw one called As White as Snow, something like that. And we have been also publishing from outside. That one is there. During Amini's time, the most notable book, who I think someone called Professor Mbiti, disappeared to Nairobi with this book, African Religions. That's when we started seeing our own things coming in, relevance in the publishing, coming in. Otherwise, maybe up to today, we have to think about decolonizing the library. Because 90% of the library is composed of British or European or English literature from outside, not ours. That is not scholarly publishing. We should be able to say, let's go to Africana and get this. You find African authors are there, people are referring to, and so on and so forth. We have a series of dissertations there. That one should be able to be used to select materials that should be used for publishing. I have mentioned journal publishing as one of the conduits of scholarly publishing. I have said one, that is Uganda Journal, which started publication in 1923. Makerere Medical Journal, 1964. Mawazo, I hope it's still there, 1968. Makerere Law Journal, 1975. Journal of African Religion and Philosophy, 89. African Crop Science Journal, 93. Dialogue, 94. African Journal of Peace and Human Rights, 1995. And Makerere Journal of Higher Education, to mention but a few. That is how rich we have been doing scholarly work. All those journals have been dealing with scholarship, not just storybooks like palm wine drinkers of West Africa. Everywhere there's a problem. One thing I have to inform you about scholarship is that all books and journals at Makerere or other places still have some things to do. One, we have what we call the logo of Makerere University Press. It is there with the two birds, they are there. Two birds facing each other with the, and so on and so on. Some of us may not even know these things. These things. What is this one? What is this one? How do you put up this one? And so on and so forth. We have, and below there, 1 inch above the book, there is what they call small letters, Makerere University. Then the press is bigger because the message is that it's coming from the press. Now, besides that logo, which I hope Makerere has registered legally, if not, anybody can copy it and go away with it. I remember someone took a photograph in about the main building, a Muzungu girl, and brought it as copyrighted. How do you copyright our things? No. Besides that, there are numbers for books. There's what we call ISBN number, International Standard Book Number, with a series of letters. There are numbers territorially to say this is East Africa. There are numbers for Uganda. There are numbers for the particular publishing house, and there is a number for the title. And we can know which is a fake one and which one is a good one, a correct one. Likewise, in serials, in journals, there's what we call ISSN by the International Standards Institute. Those ones also follow the same things. For us, we just push them there and sometimes give the numbers as we want, but it's not correct. So those numbers are for increasing visibility. 1 of the region, 2 of the country, 3 of the publishing house, and who are the people in charge. In 1995, we inaugurated Makerere University Press. We inaugurated Makerere University Press. And from since then, it has been publishing and things going down. Publishing and things going down. So there has been an issue of consistency. Because of the difficulties of getting scholarship from Africa generally, and our country specifically, there has been some form of way of sorting out the problems. Helen Musanabera here is the chief librarian, professor. This one is a very important area of concern. That is African Journals Online. African Journals Online has a list of all journals published in Africa. And when the journal is not published on time, they just scrap it off to the archives. There is also another attempt, directory of open access journals. It's also aimed at doing that. Ladies and gentlemen, why do we emphasize this? Is first, it is difficult for you to exist without people reading your work. If it doesn't get out of Makerere gates, keep it as an archive from the way they is published. So these landmarks are very, very important. And at this point, I want to say, generally, the issues of publishing scholarly works at Makerere. Publishing is dispersed. Until recently, all those books, the imprint has come under, I don't know what they call it, Makerere University Press. But you find law has its own journal. Social sciences have their own journal. Arts have their own journal. These people from agriculture have got their own journal. The vets, Mulago, have their own journals. So you can see, publishing scholarly work is dispersed. What? Politics of publication. Politics in publication. If we take it there, the donor will not come. So in other words, syndrome. Help us all the time. Help us. We are not standing on our feet. This is one of the things we have to decolonize our minds. Let's try to do something. I will go to that point later on. Distribution is limited. I was happy today to learn that from these books, that all through Africa now, I think they are getting our. I don't know what friendship Dr. Siminyo has made with other university presses to tell them that at least make a review of my publications in yours, or order my work, I will supply you that one. I don't know, but distribution has been limited. Publication has been irregular. Some things come and they go to limbo. They all let to resurrect after some time when there is money. Makerere, for some time back, has not been preparing a budget for the university press. That's one of the reasons why it's like that. Having said that, there are opportunities to strengthen the press. Makerere. One of them is to take advantage of this author, these professors here, to write the books. And they have done it. More are needed. And distribution should be widened. There is what we call African Book Collective in London. It will help us to promote our books. There is these journals. There's also African books in print. That one could be an avenue by which we should be able to promote our books. Without that, it can be a problem. Therefore, there is evidence to show Makerere is going in the right direction. However, to make it better and more professional and more straightforward so that everybody knows, meetings like this is one of the most important things, where students and staff come on a colloquia and listen to people talking about their works, like we have done today. That's one internal one. It's cheap. You only book this room, maybe pay a little money to the owners for cleaning and so on. Then people will come and listen. And you supply them with water, because these days there is what we call poverty original and poverty contextual. Poverty contextual means you still have money, but you cannot go and buy a book of 30,000, but you have 50. Then you can start calculating how much for beer tonight, how much for mukene, that kind of thinking. You see? But the most important thing is, let's put in a publications policy and widely distributed into the university So that the people don't complain that, me, I don't know what they are doing, and so on and so forth. A publications policy. And that policy should give us the structures of financing, the structures of asking for money, the structures for who is running a press. In fact, to be recognized, we should have a director of the press, not just an editor. These professors here are very hard people to deal with. If you are at their rank, they will listen. But if you are lower than them, they say, that one is also wasting our time. There are insinuations there also. Because I've been a manager of a publishing house, I know what they do. And there is also one thing, the editor, the director, be careful. If you have written a manuscript by NRM man, don't give FDC person to read it. They will say this is rubbish because their agenda is the best. The other side also, the agenda is the best. This one is rubbish. Ideologies also rule publishing, scholarly wise. And then the issue of who are you? If I am a lecturer and there's a professor there, you make a mistake to let that man known to the professor. He said, who is that one? Which lecturer? What does he know? No, this day. Then he will criticize every sentence. A report is more than a manuscript. To wake up, it's just, let me leave it up. After all, I'm not going to get money out of it. So there's a problem there. I asked the Vice Chancellor, besides asking for a policy, the Vice Chancellor specifically, let's support the press to have a budget, its own, it's more of cost center, not a vote. A vote is one for the university, a cost center, so that it can have money for which it must be accountable to and report. The director of the press also must report to the Vice Chancellor for his or her actions. I also want to say, let's support more research to take place at this university. There are many ideas, even these bachelor students, they think, they have new ideas. That's why we talk about innovations. For us, we always go there. In fact, that's why we have so many lecturers in the university. We are not teachers. Lecturers, because we are recruited, because we got a first-class degree, then a master's and so on, we just keep, today, it's like this. Where did we stop yesterday? But a teacher has to organize a lesson so that children say, this is the objective. These are exactly what we want you to learn. These expected outputs and so on. When we talk about extremism, like there, but a concept alone, extremism, takes a lesson so that people understand. Then you say, what can we do to avoid extremism? There's another good title here, Contemporary Issues in Educational Research. Are many people reading that one? What are the issues now today? There is another good title which should be coming today, The Pathogen Economy. Dr. Musenero is a chief architect of a pathogen. You all know pathogens belong to a certain faculty. Economics belong to Cobabs, I think, here. How do those meet? That's the logic of the argument. How do those meet? I'm sure even the Europeans will be screaming for that book. How did Uganda get a pathogen economy? How? It is through research, extant literature, posting hypotheses, doing assumptions, proving otherwise, and telling the world that this is the newest. Knowledge is for knowledge purposes, not enough. It is for social development, science, and so on. That's the role of the publishing press. I'm also saying, let's try to look at how we can publish theses which are locked up in the library. Maybe ask the owners to review them to make them more current. You know what the Europeans did for us? We are scientifically going on with engineering. They brought a cow all over from Britain to the Ugandan museum that this is what Africa should follow. What they did to our engineering, de-industrializing African science by saying it is black arts, black magic art, something like that. The press should mount a program of training authors to write publishable manuscripts or typescripts. It's one thing to say, I know the subject, but it is the other one to produce a nice thing, or which can be read by others. It can shame you yourself, because if you go to copy, there will be now a test for that one. Then they will say, sorry, that's about it. In other words, let's develop the capacity, internal capacity, to do more in this era, so that we can be able to get work across the borders. I don't see anything wrong by going to talk with the friends, Nairobi University Press, Dar es Salaam University Press, Somaliland. Juba actually has a few books. I think Juba University has a problem there. They always like fighting. But there's a press there which you can take. People are hungry for money. Those people are very busy fighting. They don't have time for writing books. Let's exploit that market. It's not just for pleasing authors here. It is for sharing ideas, knowledge. And of course, the third one is using research as a study stream for generating income for the university. That is what it's supposed to be. Not absorbing money for publishing titles, and they are in your office in the boxes. Who will read them in the boxes? Let's take that one again. And working, consider co-publishing titles. We started with that one, with James Carey, something like that, in England. In fact, Scotland. With the Tumusime in that place. Let's explore that one as well. Let's take advantage of the infrastructure of ICT for e-publishing. You know what the British are now doing? It's not a long time actually. They bring a big book, but they also put a CD into it. But let's get ours on e-platforms. But don't allow them to look at them directly. Put roadblocks to getting that kind of information. Put roadblocks, make it difficult. At the end, they say, if you want this publication, pay, and so on and so forth. That's very important. Consider translations as well. In the Lorere, if their book is going to be in Runyakitara only, do you think we don't want to know about you? Eh? Assemble a team to tell us what you are talking about, that grammar. There's another book. Yeah, this one. Tell us. Oh, this one, Lulu Yabara. What does it mean? Because you remain as Lulu Yabara, we don't know Swahili. Ugandans rebelled against Swahili in 1940. They said, no, we cannot learn using Swahili because we want to be measured. Our intelligence should be measured by the language of the white man so that we are equal. So we gave a silver plate to the British to publish in English because we said Swahili was for thieves and the army. That was that. Scholarly publishing is in one language. Diversify. That's my message. And relate with other presses, international experts, for review of our manuscripts. A policy should be able to talk about this, and you should be able to understand the intricacies of politics of publishing in this world. And the university library should be able to sensitize the staff on institutional repository. There is a resistance to bring your publications to the library to be put on the list of, in this space actually. I have already published. What do you want again? Mine is already there. You go and look for that journal. How many journals are in this world? But the shortest would have been to give it to the library, deposit it there. Even those from appointments board, deposit there. Our history would be rich. Because the role of an institutional repository is not to duplicate efforts there, but just to bring things nearer home, so that it's a supermarket of academic work that you have there. Ladies and gentlemen, I was told 20 minutes, but mine has been short, and I want to say the choice of this keynote address is important because we are living in a knowledge society. Someone talked about knowledge, in which knowledge and information are the resources that guide all our actions. It is through scholarly publishing that we access this knowledge and information for decision making and problem solving. Communication. Accessing this information means we need the infrastructure to do the job. There are writers here. The press is there limping. I don't know how many people are employed there since I was ushered only to one office, which was even too small for the editor of the Universal Press. Too small. I don't know how his chest is with the gamma rays on his computer. I don't know how it works. We need those resources. We need editors. We need illustrators. Don't put many people in the Universal Press. It will be another kingdom of problems. Have freelancers say, we have this book. Or ask the author, can you bring illustrations of your work straight away? Have good photographers like in the buy the pictures you want. That is it. And make a book out. There is one new thing which has come out, blended learning. All lecturers should be able to write their notes because we are now putting them on the net, reviewing them all the time. Why don't you make some of them books straight away? Blended learning. In India, the Indian lecturers do this. They get the course outline properly for the whole year, structure, the syllabus and so on. They put the title page, the next one is there, that if you read this book, you'll have BA, what, all things. People don't rush to buy those ones because they don't want to pay fees. They just want to hide away. But the book, I can read this one and I pass. Because most people go to the universities to pass and go and get jobs, not to think again about the future. When the future becomes hard, they want masters. They come and study masters. They want to PhD. They have never been employed. Hey, what kind of a nation is this? That's the role which we must avoid. We need good copy editors, language editors, content editors. Language editors are just important for putting it to talk nicely on the page. But content editors are people who are experienced in that kind of thing. We must exploit international and regional publishing relations because there we can be able to put these things across to the world, share. Even if you went to Kenya Universal Press today, it is sick. Even Dar es Salaam, I've been going there. It is also limping. Don't say you are bad love. My role is to put fire on you so that you prove. That is all I'm trying to say. With all these resources, Makerere University can make a bigger case and say in a scholarly machine, asante sana. My gaps remain mine because I was only given 4 days to do so. So whatever you have seen, keep quiet with it.
Thank you, Professor Ikoja, and another round of applause for that keynote address. We're really glad you came home, and you did such a great job for us. Thank you. Thank you so much. We'd like to get into a panel discussion for about 20 minutes. And I would like to invite two people up here. One is my principal, Professor Josephina Ichire, and the other one is Dr. Jimmy Spire Sentongo. We're going to have a little engagement about publishing, about scholarly work and research, and then what ideas we have for this university. In our midst is the Deputy Vice Chancellor in charge of Finance and Administration, Professor Henry Alinitwe. Thank you very much for joining us, Prof, and you're most welcome in this space. So I'd like to invite Dr. Spire and Professor Ichire to please come take up these seats, and we'll have a little, what we call a tete-a-tete with you, and we'll see how to move on from here. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Ichire and Jimmy, for agreeing to be part of this. We're sorry Professor Windsor got an emergency and so could not be part of this panel, but we're really grateful that Jimmy was able to agree in the shortest time notice. And Professor Ichire, thank you, especially for having to create this time after having to have another function to be a part of. I'm going to start with Professor Ichire. As my boss, as my principal, as someone that I've seen leading us in the College of Humanities and Social Sciences, but also having produced the biggest number of PhDs this year, and that's a great, great feat for us at the college. I'd just like to know, and this is quite interesting for me, we've had symposia and conferences that deal a lot with research and the university and its relevance, but also what we write and whether we are writing for people out there or we're writing for ourselves. I would like to know how we as an academy can be able, especially, and this I would like to bring to our Ugandan context, how we as an academy can create spaces where people out there who are beyond the ivory tower, who are beyond our walls that we have built, can be part of the things that we do, but also how we can let them engage with us and how we can engage with them in this whole business of research, writing, and publishing. That will be the start of my interaction with you, Prof. Ichire. We have a microphone near you, thank you.
Thank you very much, Isaac. There's a time when lecturers set hard questions and the students set their own questions. This is what I might have to do. First to say the Vice Chancellor, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic Affairs, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Finance and Administration, our dear keynote, and our guest, and all the honorable authors. We are really glad, as Makerere University, to be launching 9 books. I kept on counting, okay, this is juice, okay, this is... So I'm going to be a little bit selfish here, and to say really, this is the way to celebrate 100 years of Makerere's existence. As Professor Ikoja rightly said, Makerere is the university. In terms of scholarly publishing, we have to show the way. And I think this is exactly what we dreamt about as we revived the Makerere University Press. I remember when it started, I was actually part of the board. I don't know how I got out. And it was like, the spirit is willing, but there is no flesh. Because there was no money, there was no budget, there was nothing. And I would like to congratulate the Office of the DVC, Academic Affairs, and the Directorate of Research and Graduate Training for getting this far, because it was really from scratch. Dr. Siminyu, congratulations. So after God, then it is these offices that have created the Makerere University Press as it is today. A magic hand, which maybe now, maybe you have a kind of resource framework, but I still know that it's still an uphill task. And I think that that commitment to having a press to give Makerere and other scholars an opportunity to actually publish what is close to our hearts, what is close to our environment as Africans, what is close to us is a very commendable effort. And it gives me pleasure also that, you know, on, when did we have the Frank Kalimzo memorial lecture? Thursday. Just a few days ago, Thursday. The question that the keynote address Professor Kwesiga Joy raised was the question earlier then in the post-independence era of whether Makerere was a university, a Ugandan university, or merely a university in Uganda, because those two are different. A Ugandan university is also able to serve Ugandan needs and to be responsive to the needs of the community and the continent at large. So for me, before we really talk about how are we reaching the community, are we speaking the language, I think, as our keynote said, you see, you can create demand for knowledge. It's not only that you have to give people what they want to hear. You may create demand. I went to a clinic in my usual kind of unhealthy situations, and one of the doctors said, "Spire is in your college?" I said, "Yes, it's in my college. I want that book." And fortunately, I had carried it, said, "You have it, what I saw when I died." So I gave it to him. This is a medical doctor, and he was very, very excited, meaning that you're also able to speak across disciplines. And this kind of divide between science and arts, you know, it's something that we can talk about, but in reality, there is that cross-pollination, there is that need to actually speak to each other, because life cannot be one-sided. It speaks to all sides of a human being, whether it is the material things or the social things or spiritual, philosophical, and so on. So I've created my own question, and I'm going to stop there. Thank you very much.
You actually answered my question in very interesting ways, and I would like to thank you for that, especially with the idea of having to speak to people, but also speak across disciplines. I'm much aware that we are determined to do that at Choose, and it's something that I'm really, really proud of. Jimmy, you're a writer, you're an academic, you're a leader. I remember the first time I called you, or we called you into our satire class in first year. The question you asked me was, what am I going to tell the students? And I remember telling you, just speak to them what comes in your head. I wasn't part of that lecture, but I've been told what happened, and it was really a well-received lecture for our satire class. I would like to know about you as a writer and a publisher, and I know you've written a lot about philosophy, about satire. I know I've written about you in my scholarly madness, and things that you've told me you least expected that I would read them the way you think about them. I'd like to know how you are able, as a writer, as an academic, and as a leader, to have all these hats together, but also within Makerere and its future, where you see yourself even in this space as an academic, and you're able to still stand firm and come out as you and not someone else. So maybe what I'm thinking about is your different hats in all these things, and from personal experience, how you're able to work through them and successfully live like this kind of person.
Yeah, thanks, Isaac, for the question. I thought you were only complicated outside, but I think even here, you're remaining true to your character. I'm grateful that I've had a chance to speak twice I was not supposed to be here. It was to be Professor Winza. But just like I've had a chance to leave twice, I'm also speaking twice. And especially in the presence of the Vice Chancellor and the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic Affairs. I've always talked about many of these things out there on the media, social media, but now I have a chance to speak before you. So I think that such, it must have been God's providence that Professor Winza doesn't appear, and I'm happy for that. Oh, sorry, he lost someone. Yeah, but coming to speak to your question, Isaac, where do I see myself as a writer in the arts and as an academic? First of all, I see that there is a bit of a complexity to balance between what I think we should be doing as academics and fitting within academia and its traditions, its conventions, its promotion practices. Yes, so much has changed, but we still need a lot to do because there are some conventions that are a bit discouraging to certain forms of writing, that are discouraging to certain forms of knowledge production and dissemination. We are celebrating the production of books, 9 books, and I think we have produced quite a lot of knowledge. Today, it's not as difficult as it was a number of years ago to access knowledge. There is so much of it. We might not have done as much as we wish to do, but we know that at least there is too much. But the attendant question should be, who is reading it? Who is reading us? Are we simply attentive, simply keen on producing, or we even care about who is reading what we produce? We talk about citation indices. Yes, that matters. But in our own communities, do our people really know us? Do they know what we produce? Do they know about our journal articles? Do they know about the content of these books? Somehow we have a culture, I don't know where it comes from, it's not really within our promotion practices, but we academics seem to be shy to talk about what we produce. Someone publishes a book, has a social media page, never talks about it. Publish an article, keep quiet. Even the office mate is not aware of what you have produced. And then when it comes to promotion, you list 8 or 10 articles. So you ask yourself, what is it exactly that we are producing for? I write in the media, in the popular media, in the Observer, I draw cartoons, and some people tell me, but you're wasting time because all that doesn't really count in promotion. Well, I care about promotion and so much, and I hope the Vice Chancellor is listening carefully, plus my boss. Being that he's behind a mask, I'm not sure whether he's smiling or just... Yeah, I'm keen on promotion, but I also care a lot about who is reading what I produce. In the newspapers where I write, I'm not really paid. But I feel happy if I write an article and I can check, I find over 1,000 people, 2,000 people have read it. It's a way of sharing what I think about society, what I think about what's happening around me. But I publish a journal article, at times you get totally no response. You may never know who has read. Well, there are some few who have cited whom you can trace. But on a number of occasions, you never know whether what you're producing has been read or not. Yet still we insist on only or mostly paying attention to that. I understand that all that we write elsewhere would count, but that's community outreach, which is not even weighed. It's all bundled together under one category. Whether you have 1,000 newspaper articles or one, that is community service. And I think this partly contributes to the question by some people out there on the our relevance as academics. If I know that there is a professor from our village, but I have no idea about what they've written, not anything, but the books are there, the journal articles are there, will I consider that professor to be really relevant to me or not, apart from the fact that they bring a certain kind of reputation to the village? But I think there will be questions about relevance. But there is so much we can do. in the debates that are going on in the country about agriculture, about governance, about science versus arts, although I don't think that contest should be there, where is our voice? I know some people are speaking, but there are some who are almost totally quiet, apart from speaking maybe in safe places such as toilets where no one can hear. There is a way we have muted ourselves, maybe because policy also contributes, and our fears, existential fears, but we have kept quiet at a point where I think society needs us the most. And I think in a way this affects the academia, because if society cannot appreciate what we are doing, I'm not saying we are not doing a lot, we are doing a lot, as I said at the beginning, but if we cannot shine it out there, then even when we agitate for certain things concerning us, they might simply keep quiet and look at us. Okay, when we're suffering with this and that, they were quiet. Now why would they want us to speak for them when they have an issue? But one more last thing that I would want to speak to this, especially with regard to promotion. Professor Ikoja put this so succinctly. The politics of promotion, the politics of publication, and the keenness with which we have to study it as we perform it. I think Professor Ikoja was a bit selfish. He almost said everything, including what we would have wanted to say. But it's good that that came out. We are celebrating the publication of 9 books. He mentioned that a book might take maybe a minimum of 2 years. It could take 3, 4, 5 years. But in our promotion policy, a book is equivalent to 3 journal articles. I could write about 3 journal articles in a year, or maybe 6 in 2 years. Now, where will the incentive be for writing books? If one book is equivalent to 3 journal articles, we'll concentrate on journal articles. I know each of them has their advantage. There is an advantage to journal articles, and there is what journal articles cannot do that can only be done by books. But is our incentive structure favorable to the production of books? As maybe we mourn that we are writing less books than it used to be in the past when academics were fewer, we should also question ourselves, how have our policies contributed to this? If one needs to be promoted, and they know it's going to take ages writing a book, why would I put my energy in writing a book? So I think these are things that we need to think about more. The Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic Affairs is listening to me keenly, and I think that's a promising gesture. Thank you so much, Isaac.
Jimmy, you remind me of an article I read. I think it came out recently in the Journal of African Cultural Studies. If any of us comes across it, it's titled Academic Fakery. It's quite interesting stuff. And how as academics, and you say this, how as academics we pretend to be something when we're actually fake, even in our disciplines. And I think it's by Kotsia. If any of us ever comes across it, it's a really, really well-written article. It's titled Academic Fakery. And it's a whole journal edition on fakery in the academia. So for the two of you, and this is just a final question, Professor Ichile talks about needs, talks about ourselves, and Jimmy, you talk about who we write for and why we write. Because when I write because I love what I do. Sometimes maybe I don't think about many things. So when we do this is beautiful stuff. What of the future? What is there for us? How are we able then to inspire academics who are coming after us to do this and even more? And what I know Professor Ikoja talked about this a bit, but how can we help inspire upcoming academics to get into this business of researching, putting their output out there, and being able to engage with not just fellow scholars, but with people, and create an arena where there's a lot more bubbling stuff that is coming out in the world beyond just our promotion, beyond just we getting a name, and so much more that we do when we write. And then once we're done with that, we'll move on to the next item in our program. Any of you can take up that question.
I'll be very brief because I think that more time was given to the rightful people, the authors and the keynote, and indeed the keynote swept everything. He didn't leave anything for us. I think you talked about decolonization. You talked about the role of knowledge. I know that we can concentrate on the transactional aspect of it. How do I get promoted and so on? And actually that transactional tradition limits scholarship, because once you become a professor, there is no incentive to continue producing knowledge. So I think that there has to be an incentive above the transactional interest in the fact that once you sign in to be a scholar, to be an academic in a premier university, you also in that package have a role to play in terms of creating and motivating society. Look at the books, for example, on languages. I'm itching to read the Kiswahili one, and also, but it's the Runyaktara one in Runyaktara. It's in English. And Ngugi has actually emphasized that let's also write in our languages, because that's a political act. Write Runyakitara in Runyakitara, in Runyankore Ruchiga, in Uganda, and so on. I think Dr. Sauda Namialo has taken a lead on that. So I am just going to say that for us, in this space, as Makerere University, we have a role to play in terms of creating this knowledge, cross-referencing. You look at our course outlines, these people are not, maybe in engineering, you'll find Nawangwe B, 2010. You'll look at a course outline and you think that Ugandan people don't write. We really need to change that culture, as Dr. Sentongo has put it, because when we do that, we also motivate the younger generation to pick interest in writing and in expanding the knowledge in our context to answer our, not problems, to answer our questions as a society. So what I'm saying, let us write.
Okay. Thank you. Jimmy, you have something to say?
Yes, sorry, what's the question?
How do we inspire people after us to do exactly what we are doing? And especially because, and I hate to say this, our students don't read. I hate to say it, including my literature students, sadly. But how are we able to inspire this kind of work to be built over and over again without ceasing? Professor Ichire says we need to write. What do you think we need to do?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, first of all, I wouldn't aspire to inspire people coming after me to do exactly what I'm doing. I believe their challenges could be different, their world could be different from ours, and perhaps they should aim higher than where we have been able to reach, and maybe they'll have more opportunities available to them than us. But in terms of a culture, I think I would only encourage a culture of always seeking to go beyond the comforts of what we have achieved, the comforts of what we know, the comforts of what is celebrated by our society or by our peers. Because I think at times it's that comfort that makes us think that we cannot or we shouldn't aspire for more. But I would also wish for the people coming after us to be able to appreciate knowledge beyond a sheer marathon or production of knowledge. That they would appreciate that it is our role, just as we inherit knowledge from those who came before us, that it is our responsibility to add what is there. it's not just for promotion, as Professor Ichira said, but anyone who can promote, rather add to knowledge, should. And second, the decolonization message is very important. Professor Ikoji, I thank you for bringing out that point. I think we really need to decolonize publication, we need to decolonize knowledge production. In our promotion processes, once again I come back to it, we put a lot of scrutiny on local publishers. Publications from journals around, maybe from UCU, a journal at Uganda Christian University or Uganda Matters University, but the moment you see that it's from Taylor and Francis, you're already biased. You say, okay, Taylor and Francis, this is good. What does that mean for our publications? I published an article about 2 years ago with the title, Which Journal is That? And it discusses that in detail. When you put a lot of scrutiny on our journals, in effect you're contributing to their death. I'm not saying they shouldn't be scrutinized, but if they're already received with suspicion, we are creating a culture where many academics will select. When I have a very good article that I really trust, I'll send it to a Taylor and Francis journal. When I have one that I doubt, I send to the journals around, to Mawazo, or to some journal in Kisubi University. But what does that mean to the life of that journal? The cemetery of African journals is quite busy. We start a journal, next year it's dead, or 2 years after it's dead. Partly because we might not be doing what we are supposed to do in the editorial processes, but also because the promotion practices somehow treat our journals as stepchildren, not to say that stepchildren should be treated like that. But the suspicion with which we receive publications in our journals is also killing them. So that's what I would want the future generations to deal with, but after we have also tried. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Spire, and thank you, Professor Ichire. I would like to invite, oh yes, my bad, sorry. Thank you very much for that engagement and for the thought-provoking responses. I'd like to invite Dr. Simenyu to invite the chairperson of the Mark Press editorial board, Professor Omar Kakumba. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, permit me to say a few words before my chair of the editorial board and Deputy Vice Chancellor AA comes to the platform. When I got into this office, none of these gentlemen here was in office. Actually, it's the former Vice Chancellor who appointed me to act as manager. But I was excited when Professor Nawange stood up to ask for office, and he underscored the importance of a university press. And while he was preparing to get into office, I was wondering how I'm going to get to him to say I'm the man in charge. He found me walking in the corridor of the main building and said, "Sam, was I told you are in charge of the press? Come, let us talk." And I thought that was great. And he gave me a hearing, I gave him my ideas and so on. Then comes Professor Kakumba and he's vying for office. And he's saying the press, the press, the press. So I knew I had a team that can push us to the next level. And they have done well. Professor Kakumba has 101 ideas and he shares them all with you and expects you to take up something to push you to the next level. He chairs our editorial board, and all this is a product of our concerted effort. Let's put our hands together as we welcome him to say a few words to us. Welcome, Prof. Kakumba.
Yeah, many thanks to you, Dr. Siminyu. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, our Vice Chancellor, our guest of honor representing the Honorable Minister for Science and Technology, the keynote speaker, our dear friend, Professor Ikoja, my colleague, DVC, F&A, Principal, members of academic staff, members of management here, our students, and all the guests, including the press that is covering this physically here, but also virtually. I mean, what an interesting afternoon and evening, the hour of this evening, out of all this that we have had. From the keynote of Professor Ikoja taking us through the history of publishing in Makerere, not Makerere University, very, very, very interesting. Quite a lot of things to learn. And also the panelists, very much appreciated. Professor Ichire, Jimmy Spire Sentongo, and all colleagues that have really made this. Ladies and gentlemen, my role has been already articulated. I chair the press, the board, editorial board of the press. May I take the opportunity to request members of the editorial board of the press kindly stand up for recognition. Dr. Justin Namalwa, Professor Wamala, Jimmy is part of us, managing editor. Dr. Otim Maxwell, why did you sit at the back? I'm comfortable, sir. Oh, thank you, sir. Yes, Dr. Maxwell Otim is a member of the press, editorial committee, and is also part of the Ministry of Science and Technology. Yeah, I want to take this opportunity to appreciate the role of the authors. I think we wouldn't be here if these people did not trust the university press, which we are trying to revive. But while many of you are appreciating us who are visible in trying to build momentum for this agency or institution, I must say that I derive a lot of momentum and inspiration from our boss, Professor Barnabas Nawangwe. I must say, almost single-handedly, he has insisted all the time, even when there is no. That's why, Dr. Siminyu, I never revealed it to you when you were complaining. The budget that has been allocated to us can be exhausted just by the administrative issues. I told you, you just bring to me a camera-ready manuscript. I will assure you of getting it published. Don't worry about the monies. I've told you that several times. But I know that my back is always defended by the VC there. Said, issues to do with the press, don't mind about these figures that are allocated again under DRGT. We said with the university press, there is no question about it. Once the manuscripts have gone through the rigor, the review process as we know it, and the quality checks, and it is ready to get out, even if it is one day to close the financial year, we shall find the resources. That's the assurance I want to give you, and the assurance I want to give to the authors who are here. I'm also delighted to note, ladies and gentlemen, that we have, as we speak now, we have over 40 manuscripts in the pipeline under the Makerere University Press. Now that is a great sign of confidence in this institution of the university. You'll agree with me that one of the remarkable symbols of a vibrant research university, one of its definitions is the establishment or existence of a university press. All of you have been in North America, have been in Europe, have been in Southern Africa, and also the parts of this world. You'll agree with me that when you hear about, many times the Oxford University Press, Cambridge University Press, or even UCT, University of Cape Town, or University of Pretoria Press, they compete with the universities. Sometimes you imagine that they are different entities. Indeed, they have grown up as different independent entities, many times competing with their mother universities. But these are university presses. Everything we used to read, including primary books. You remember Oxford, Cambridge, But you wonder how a university of such a character then ventures into publishing these junior books, dictionaries, J.A. Bright, some of those were Cambridge Press. Said, why would the university be interested in these O-level? But that's the model of research universities. They have these presses that go beyond leaps and bounds to really contribute a lot to knowledge and to research and publication. So we want to appreciate this effort, and we want to appreciate this evening and afternoon in trying to show a case of the potential that Makerere has. As we celebrate 100 years, as we try to revive this press, it's also satisfying to learn that many people are trusting these energies from the authors. The only bit, the challenge that you are now giving us is what Professor Ikoja talked about. How does, and what Spire has also articulated quite elaborately here. How do we get this information, this knowledge, to get it to the readership, including our studentship, but also our academia, so that we can read these works? I think that's a challenge that you are giving us, and that a challenge I'm also pushing to you, the audience, and everybody who will hear from this, and everybody that is joining us online. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to appreciate the VC and the team for entrusting us with the responsibility, and my team that is giving a lot of energies in this. Because we agree that the core part of our strategic plan as Makerere University, it has a key strategic thrust in fostering this university into a research-led university. I'm sure my VC will articulate the whole character and the definition of a research-led. Because research-led has both backward and forward linkages. What you are teaching is fed into by research. But also what you are sending out in terms of the products, in terms of the policies, in terms of the technologies, in terms of the knowledges, is evidence-based. So you have both backward and forward linkages. And that's important for us as Makerere as we strive to achieve our key strategic areas, the strategic plan 2020-2030. I want to appreciate the keynote speaker, the issues of decolonizing the library. That's a very, very powerful statement. And I'm glad that Professor Helen Abiyamugisha is here, our university librarian. Would want her to bring a requisition, and we see how we can have many of these titles getting into our library, but it will also be a challenge to the academia who are here to ensure that these works become part of the prescription for the course outlines for our students. Because this is a challenge to all of us. You look at your course outline, look at what Professor Hikiri has said. Where is the African? Are we talking about Makerere University like the keynote Professor Kwesiga talked about the other time when we were, when she was giving a keynote about the late, our first Vice Chancellor, Frank Kalimzo, when he said, it's Makerere University, you re-echoed it. But she also added on, university, because when they were being established by the colonialists, so let us put a university in Africa, but not an African university. So that has been the design. But then we have a role to play. After getting over 56 or 57 years of independence, or 60 years, we are celebrating 60 years this time around. So we must be able to show that we have really built a strong African and a strong Ugandan university, which is able to address emerging issues in society, and people can pick this kind of knowledge. I don't intend to take a lot of time. I didn't have a prepared speech. Mine is basically to express my excitement and appreciation to the authors who have entrusted us with their knowledge to go through it. The uniqueness of Makerere University Press, as many of you are aware, our motivation is not a commercial business entity. Because the University Council has invested money for the last 4 or 5 years okay, without demanding for profits or, you know, or putting a lot on pressure. But definitely, we must live to the reality of having a return on investment, not really a return, a cost. You know, our objective is cost recovery, not a return on investment, but simply cost recovery. Unlike many publishing houses elsewhere in town, whose preoccupation and concentration is doing what? So at least you have the assurance that when you publish with a university press, the drive is not towards profitability or making money or having another building built from these books, or and also assure our, you know, authors that with time we have designed a mechanism of, marketing. We are going a bit slowly, but also trying to provide the loyalties as it were, so that there is some motivation that Spire talked about. Of course, the candles that you burn in the nights when you are putting up all these write-ups may not easily be compensated by some coins or some papers in your pocket, but it is also quite, energizing to learn that your effort can be compensated when a book has come out, especially if it is a very, very good book. Yeah, so the focus on our editorial team, I want to thank you so much, Dr. Siminyu, Mariam Nachiseka, please kindly come forward to, she's the senior editor of the editorial press, and she has led the bigger team of many colleagues. Where is Catherine? Catherine Agava, is she around? Yeah, and Bernard was also, is he around? Yeah, so these fellows are very, very, very much marketable. You know, a few weeks ago, many agencies were actually scouting for some of our people. It took us to try and convince them that please keep around here, because these are highly revered and they do a lot of work. The editors, these are the technical and language editors. While we glorify the subject editors, a lot of work is done by the language editors. Because organizing that work in a language with logical flow, the organizing the ideas so that they flow in a coherent manner that can appeal to the readership is a different thing. For us, when you are writing, as you just trust that you have the knowledge, but organizing that knowledge in such a way that the reader, that's why we must appreciate the work of that team. So our expectation, definitely, we shall be having the journals you are talking about under the press. We want to revive many of them. Mawazo is back. The last year, or early this year or last year? Last year, late last year, they launched again and we are very, very much excited about these. They are having a lot of conversations. So when you look at this, like Professor Kiaichire was really priding into this is 90% choose. So I want to congratulate the College of Humanities and Social Sciences. But also want to challenge other colleges, please. The Mark University Press is ready to receive all works from other colleges. And I was encouraging Professor Mbazira here from the School of Law and Naluwairo. We said that the work of Joseph Bosa, want to appreciate the family. I think it is multidisciplinary. It crosses over to issues of human rights, constitutional law, and politics. Okay, well, politics is part of JUICE, but there is a lot of things that really cut across. So I want to encourage other colleges to come in. And we shall also be building capacity training for the authors. These are some of the things that the editorial committee wants to do. Training many people in scholarly publishing, especially beyond the journals and all that. And then also, as VC is aware, and I mean will also attest to the reality, that the Makerere University Press is being institutionalized. The council directed the restructuring of the university. So we are now having towards the final process of having a restructuring report that has involved the Ministry of Public Service where we want to build some of these institutions and structures. So with the time, the press will become its own entity, and then it will be a journey for it to grow. I want to take this opportunity once again to thank you for all that you have rendered, everybody, including those who have come to grace this occasion. And at this juncture, permit me to invite the Vice Chancellor, Professor Barnabas Nawangwe, to address you.
Our guest of honor, Dr. Cosmas Mwikirize, representing the Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation. Our keynote speaker, Professor Ikoja, Vice Chancellor of Soroti University. My colleagues, the Deputy Vice Chancellors, the Editor-in-Chief and your team, colleagues, Makerere University, the authors, members of staff, students, ladies and gentlemen. I think it is about 3 weeks ago, I was interviewed by Urban TV, and they said, what do you want to be remembered as for at Makerere? And I said, if Makerere can be a vibrant research university, publishing, then I think I'll have done my job. Therefore, this afternoon, I'm very proud that I'm currently the Vice Chancellor of Makerere University. I want to begin by congratulating the authors for putting in the energy and the time, and for being good role models for the others. Because Paya was saying, you know, books don't count too much to promotion. And then Professor Hikiro was saying, after people become professors, there's nothing else to look for. But really, we have seen professors around the world. Even after they have become professors, there's no further promotion. But they are publishing all the time. Because there, the phrase publish or perish actually counts. In many universities, you may be a professor, but if you are not publishing, you can actually be told to leave. If you are not doing research, you can be told to leave. You may be an internationally acclaimed professor, but you are not publishing. You will be told to leave if for 2-3 years you are not publishing anything. For me, the main thing that I want to do, or that I have wanted to do, because I'm at the tail end of my term, is my major objective, the emancipation of black people from mental slavery. That's my main objective. So when I see all these publications, when I see people beginning to publish about the issues of Uganda and Africa, then I'm happy. Because why should we have a London Journal of Tropical Agriculture? Why should the people in London be writing about our tropical agriculture and we are here? And we even read what they have written. How can it be the Europeans writing about our cultural norms and we are here seated? It doesn't make sense. So Makerere must take the leadership that she's expected to take on the African continent in emancipating our people from mental slavery. And I must congratulate the authors. I must congratulate Professor Kakumba and the team he's leading, the editorial board, and the editor-in-chief, Mr. Seminyo, and your team for a job well done. It is good to have a team that is vibrant and that thinks they should do their job properly. And it is because of that spirit that we are seeing these results. Congratulations on this bumper harvest. Congratulations, Choose, for demonstrating that you have indeed resurrected from slumber. Choose is on the move, and we congratulate you. This is the way to go if we are to be the university that everybody looks to. If people say Makerere is the top black university on earth, how can it be the top black university on earth if it is not even publishing? And you know, people, the other people are looking at us and say, what do these Africans behave like? Are we there just to shout at every opportunity? Or are we thinking? Now, this shows that we are thinking. And if we can do much more of this, then we can be respected as a university and as a people. So thank you very much, colleagues. And I hope this is an inspiration to our young people. Always remember that your continent is marginalized, that you as a people are marginalized, and you must fight to get out of that marginalization. And it doesn't help to remember that 3,000 years ago we conquered the world, and Africa ruled the world. That is history. We must come out of that now and tell the rest of the world we are just as good as you are. And this is the way to say it. I would like to take this opportunity now to introduce our guest of honor. Our guest of honor is actually a member of our staff. Dr. Cosmas Mwikirize is a member of staff in SEDAT. But because he's doing so many good things, he has been temporarily snatched from us by the Ministry of IT. And he's heading one of those lines. Professor Iko was talking of the pathogen economy. Dr. Mwikirize, I think you are leading the engineering economy. So he's helping the Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation to truly inculcate science, technology and innovation in Uganda. And that is no mean achievement, that you have been recognized and appointed by the President to head that unit. Congratulations. Of course, you know, Dr. Mwikirize was recently my student. And we teachers should not always be crying out for more money, for more money. We should be happy that the people we have trained are earning more than us. That they are successful. Then we should be happy. Look at that person. I'm the one who trained that one. That alone should take you to bed very satisfied. But we are happy to see you here, and thank you for representing the minister. May I now invite you to come and address us and launch these books. Thank you very much.
the Vice Chancellor, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Finance Administration, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic Affairs, our keynote speaker, Professor Ikoja, Principal Chus, friends, authors, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. Dear Vice Chancellor, thank you for that kind introduction. I'm honored to represent my principal, who is the Honorable Minister for Science and Technology, Honorable Monica Musenero Masanza, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, but she sends her regards. That said, and to reiterate, back home when I'm in Makerere, Makerere is my home in more ways than one, and I'm proud that this institution is reclaiming its position as that shining light on a hill. Now, whatever I say that you like, you can credit my minister. What doesn't sit well with you, that will be on me. That said, I'll go ahead now and read her prepared remarks. So she says it gives her great pleasure to officiate at this centenary book launch by Makerere University Press. She says she also feels very much at home whenever she's in Makerere, first because she's also a proud alumna of this great university, and secondly, because we at the Science, Technology and Innovation Secretariat are close partners and allies of Makerere University. As government, we attach great value to scientific research and education as drivers for innovation and national development. And that is why the government has continued to commit resources in the national budget to support initiatives like the Research and Innovation Fund at Makerere University, which has been running, I believe, for the past 4 years. And we're continuing to give even more support through various initiatives. We're also aware that you're receiving support from other government-funded and development partner-funded research and innovation initiatives. Now, what we'd want to emphasize is that a look at what your scholars have done, and especially from what has been presented today, shows that what you're doing is quite impressive, but the race is far from over. If the outcomes of your research are gathering dust on your bookshelves and in your cabinet drawers. Now, I wouldn't want to say scholarship is worthless if it doesn't create value in society. You can get promoted, you can win more grants, but where the rubber hits the road is when you're adding value to society. Are you making the lives of people better? Are you creating a conscious and transformed society? Are you contributing to reorientation of mindsets, transformation of our value system? Are you contributing to policy? So besides the intellectual property outputs and other products of your research, we expect you to share your findings with the Ugandan taxpayer, who most times is financing your work, since this is a public institution. You may have done this through policy briefs and other mass media channels, But for a person who needs to know a little bit more, you must go further. And that is when a publishing outlet becomes a necessity. Now, one may ask, with all the private publishing houses within Uganda and others beyond the borders of Uganda, why does Makerere University need a publishing house? Granted, there are many outlets for publishing your work, but a university press is a university press. Since many of the local Ugandan publishers are private, they work for profit. Their focus is on market size. It's therefore logical that they will go into publishing low-hanging fruits, such as primary and secondary school textbooks, which serve a larger population and hopefully bigger markets. Often, these publishers take on materials for tertiary scholars only when they are sponsored. Now, the other option left for us is international publishing, some private and some public. But this too comes with its own attendant challenges. Of course, there is the politics that comes with vetting your manuscripts and processing them to suit the needs of an international audience. And that is why decolonization becomes even more salient. But then even after crossing this hurdle, you're then faced with the challenge of having to pay high publishing fees, sometimes prohibitively so, to make your article open access. Sometimes when you don't pay, if the publication is proprietary, then your readers are faced with the high price attached to accessing your work. Now, these circumstances make our published work inaccessible to the majority of our target population, of course, in addition to the fact that they haven't been tailored to that population in the first place. And that's where the university press comes in, because it is funded by the public, and hopefully, as Professor Kakumba said, it is non-profit making. Now, I want to take you up on that, Prof. I believe much as it is non-profit making, it is supposed to be self-sustaining in the long term. And we should also compensate the authors. We know writing is a public good, but there should be a way how they can commensurately get compensated for their efforts. Now, this means the products have to be pocket-friendly, but the press should also make business sense, long-term, of course. Now, since this is a university press, its core target population are the scholarly and associated population groups. A national university press, which I believe this can easily turn into, has the additional advantage of aligning its products to the needs of the local population and the national development agenda. You see, most times we write in a language that's full of jargon that is more suited to the scholarly audience, and we forget the local population who should be our primary consumers. And I think the university press can help us to address that need. Now, it is with this in mind that we wish to commend Makerere University on this noble effort to establish a viable university press at this premier university. And this should serve as an example to other universities in the country on the way to go. But before they venture into setting up their own publishing houses, with all the implication this may have on quality of products, we can utilize this outlet at this university that Makerere has freely availed to us. We are proud of the quality of publications that we have witnessed today, and we encourage you to do more. It is important that we strive to maintain international quality standards in our scholarly publications. We must prove to our people and the rest of the world that what is locally produced is not necessarily inferior in quality. I'm informed that some of the publications that have been presented here have also contributed to appointments and promotions, which is a very good thing. Now, this is commendable. Please keep on with that spirit. We want to challenge you, however, to ensure that, and I think our keynote speaker alluded to this, to ensure that most of your publications are availed electronically. It has been said that a small spark can light a fire and cause a conflagration capable of consuming forests of intellectual ignorance. Today, electronic media are the chief enablers for this conflagration. I hope that what has begun as an initiative at Makerere University can transform this nation through enhancing education, research, and scholarship. Electronically, some of this body of work can be availed by the scholars gratis for the benefit of humanity and for future generations across the globe. Finally, we want to take this opportunity to thank the Vice Chancellor, Makerere University, and the management team for nurturing and supporting this spirit of innovation. We look forward to seeing more publications in varied disciplines and from beyond the walls of Makerere. May I also take this opportunity to encourage this audience to buy and read these books, and also be encouraged to submit their own works to Makerere University Press for processing. As government, we'll continue to support innovations aimed at transforming our lives, and we pledge to continue supporting Makerere University Press in this noble venture. And with those few words, I'd like to congratulate you all and declare these books officially launched. For God and mankind.
Yes, let us give a befitting hand clap to our guest of honor. Thank you so much. The next is a very quick ceremony for signing. That is our guest of honor will be joined by the Vice Chancellor, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic Affairs, and the keynote speaker to sign the books. And we So what we have is that the 9 books that our guest of honor has declared launched, we have them Mariam, please let the guest of honor have something he's going to use to sign, and the Vice Chancellor, the DVSA Academic Affairs, and the keynote speakers. To all our we have The committee that managed this session, please, let's be fast. DVC Finance and Administration, kindly also join. To the participants physically present at Makerere University Yusuf Lule Central Teaching Facility, CTF2 Auditorium, and our online audience, and those who are also following us live on Makerere University YouTube channel. What we are witnessing right now is the signing of the dummies of the 9 books that have been launched today at Makerere University. The team that is signing comprises the chief guest, the Vice Chancellor of Makerere University, the Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic Affairs, the Deputy Vice Chancellor Finance and Administration, the keynote speaker, Professor Robert Ikoja, the Principal, College of Humanities and Social Sciences, the rest of us, our duty is to ensure that all our eyes are focusing at the right corner where the guest of honor is, signing of the dummies for the 9 books that have been launched today. The 9 books, the titles include Statehood on Trial, Thoughts on the 1966 Uganda Political Crisis, Mismanagement of Subnationalism and Diversity in Nations, The Case of Uganda in Uganda, 1987 to 1980, Runyachitara Language Studies, a guide for advanced learners and teachers of Runyachitara, Contemporary Issues in Educational Research, Policies and Practices in the Global South, What I Saw When I Died, Moving Back into the Future, Countering Violent Extremism in Uganda, Lulu Yabara, HIV AIDS in Uganda, Achievements and Challenges. The team comprising what's going on. We have 9 books that have been launched, and it's the signing ceremony of the 9 dummies of the books that have been launched. Quickly, members, let's get to the photo moment. And to simplify this, we are going to request the team here, each person to hold the dummy on our behalf. Principal, let's join the photo. As we do that, I'm also going to, as we have this session, I'm also going to request the authors in the room and the editors to get ready. They'll also be coming over to join the second photo. Principal, you're a bit far. And the masks. And when you're holding these dummies, our chief guest and everyone, this is a happy moment. We've resurrected. So you're smiling on behalf of the physical participants and the online audience following this. It's a happy moment. All the cameras facing you, and you're smiling on our behalf. Congratulations to Makerere University, the authors, editors. Oh, wow. One book was still missing. And I'm going to humbly request you to remain where you're standing. May we have the authors and editors in the room also to join here. Authors. Okay. So please have been guided by the Vice Chancellor. Thank you so much. Please, authors and editors, join us, and each author or editor should hold the title of your book, the dummy. Editors. Yes, we are having the editors and the authors join in the photo. And there's a special request that each author or editor should hold the dummy. Oh, Visi, I thought you would also be part of. Okay, later on, okay. Let's first have the editors and authors. Editors, authors of the respective books. To all our participants, physical here at Makerere University, Yusuf Lule Central Teaching Facility, CTF Auditorium, and the audience online. Right now we are having the respective authors and editors of the books posing for a group photo. The editors and authors of the respective books that have been launched. 9 books have been launched today. The 9 books were published by Makerere University Press. It's a happy day for us in the life of Makerere University. This is an achievement for us to have 9 books that have been launched. The smiles represent that we are happy, and we look forward to more books being launched in the near future. Hello? All right. So let us kindly remain there. I would like now the Vice Chancellor and the entire team here to join the authors and the editors, and that is the final photo. And also just to thank the media team and Makerere University at 100 Secretariat for all the work that has been done. We thank the media team. We thank Makerere University Public Relations Office. We thank Makerere University Press. And we thank all the media houses that are present, including Makerere University Institute of Yes, thank you very much. The next item is very brief. Mariam, Issa, I need a team that is too fast. Let us, Vice Chancellor and Guest of Honor have been informed that when you launch a books, then you should take a package. So I humbly request the Vice Chancellor to pass on a package, all the books that have been launched to the Guest of Honor. So, yes, the Guest of Honor has received the 9 books that have been launched. They have been presented to him by the Vice Chancellor, Professor Barnabas. Yes. Now, the next person to receive, still from the Vice Chancellor, is the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic Affairs of Makerere University, Professor Umar Kakumba, and he's the chairperson of the editorial board. Yes, next to receive is the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Finance and Administration, Professor Henry Alnaitwe. All right. And he's going to read all those books. Then next we have our keynote speaker, Professor Robert Ikocha. Yes. Next we have the managing editor, Makerere University Press. And I'm also requesting the university librarian to come forward. So let's have, the managing editor who is already here, Dr. Samuel Simunyu. He's the managing editor, Makerere University Press. Congratulations. Next, the university librarian, Professor, let us have a representative from Makerere University Library, most probably from Africana section, to receive. That's the university, Makerere University Library, receiving the 9 books that have been launched. And finally, I humbly request the Guest of Honor to also ensure that our Vice Chancellor reads these books. Kindly help us hand over the 9 books to the Vice Chancellor of Makerere University. All right. Yes, so the Vice Chancellor will read on our behalf, right? Yes, thank you very much. We are coming to the end of the session. I only request that after the media team kindly remain here. I'm also requesting the editors and the authors to remain in this room because the media wishes to interview you on some of the books that have been launched. Oh, okay. So may I request Mr. Isaac Tibasima, the MC, to come and wrap up this. Isaac Tibasima, you're welcome. Please come and wrap up this. Thank you so much.
We request the media and the authors to please stay in the room as our chief guest leaves. They're going to have an interaction. And I would like to thank everyone here who has been part of this. Do have a good evening. Thank you very much.